Gurdjieff identified 21 distinct types of psychological idiots in his teachings. He used the term idiot as a metaphorical spiritual typology representing stages of self-realization as a shock rather than insults. His teachings suggested 21 different patterns of mechanical operation that humans can fall into. Each one is more sophisticated than the last. Each one is more convinced of its own consciousness. In this new series, we'll understand these 21 types of psychological idiots one by one. Not to insult, but to provide a technical diagnosis of the default human condition. This series will help you understand your psychological ground with a provocative method Gurdjieff used. He called the first type the ordinary idiot. This is the most common one that we've discussed multiple times. I'll make this as precise as possible. This will clarify the fundamental teachings of Gurdjieff before moving forward to the more complex types. So, the ordinary idiot isn't stupid. They're not unintelligent or incompetent. They're functional, often successful, sometimes even brilliant. But they're asleep, and the sleep runs so deep they have no idea they're inside a daydream. Here's what makes this type so dangerous. They operate as a biological machine while believing they possess free will. They spend decades reacting to life while assuming they're directing it. This isn't about intelligence. This is about consciousness, and consciousness has nothing to do with how smart someone appears or how well they function in society. The ordinary idiot can run a corporation, write philosophy, teach meditation, speak eloquently about awareness, and remain completely mechanical in their actual operation. The machinery can be sophisticated, but it's still a machine. Gurdjieff's entire teaching starts from this shocking premise. A human being is not one unified self. They're a collection of impulses, habits, reactions, and automatic patterns that take turns controlling. There's no stable center, no real continuity, no actual person making decisions, just a committee of automatic functions pretending to be someone. The ordinary idiot has no stable center to speak from. One moment, they're motivated and making promises. The next moment, they've forgotten completely and moved on to different impulses. They commit to change in the morning and abandon it by afternoon. They decide one thing when calm and contradict it entirely when triggered. But they never notice the contradiction, because there's no continuous awareness of the whole process. Each action feels real to them. Each impulse believes that it's in charge. Each reaction assumes it's authentic. This is what Gurdjieff meant when he said, "Man is a machine." To clarify this right now, notice how you're sitting. Is that posture really your choice, or you just sat like that without actually being aware of it? Let me know in the comments. Now, I told you to notice your posture, but did you actively participate in that act of noticing? If you're commenting, are you actively aware that you're commenting? According to Gurdjieff, everything that we do must be out of our conscious approach. This not only refines our decision, but also feeds our consciousness. If you're unable to do this, the machine takes control and you no longer remain a human. Gurdjieff wants us to reduce the machine's control as much as we can. The ordinary idiots are unable to do that. They do not think. They are thought itself. They do not feel. They are felt through. They do not act. They are acted upon by automatic processes they mistake for self. This creates a complete illusion of consciousness. They experience thoughts, emotions, and actions arising inside them and conclude they are in fact conscious. They think they are in control. They must be making choices. Because if they weren't, who would be experiencing all of this? But experiencing automatic processes is not the same as directing them. Witnessing mechanical operation is not the same as being conscious. The machine can observe itself running and still be a machine. Here's where the real danger emerges. The ordinary idiot is not just asleep. They're convinced they're awake. This conviction creates absolute resistance to genuine self-observation. Why would they question their consciousness when they're certain they possess it? Why would they investigate their mechanicalness when every experience confirms they're making conscious choices? This false confidence becomes an impenetrable barrier to actual development. They don't seek consciousness because they believe they already have it. They don't work on themselves because they assume they are complete. The ordinary idiot lives in perfect repetition without ever recognizing the pattern. Same thoughts cycling endlessly. Same emotional triggers firing on schedule. Same decisions leading to the same outcomes. Same mistakes repeated year after year. They interpret this mechanical repetition as simply how life is. They don't see the pattern because they're inside it. Each repeated cycle feels fresh, feels new, feels like this time is different. The machine convinces itself that it's learning, growing, evolving while running the same programs it has always run. This is what makes the ordinary idiot so prevalent. They blend perfectly into society. They appear conscious, capable, and self-directed. They talk about their choices, their goals, and their authentic feelings. And everything they say sounds convincing because they genuinely believe it themselves. But watch them over time. Notice how their behavior contradicts their stated intentions, how their actions don't match their words, how they promise change and deliver repetition, how they commit to one thing and do another without even recognizing the gap. This happens because there's no unified self making these promises and breaking them. There are different mechanical patterns taking turns running the show. One pattern makes the promise. Another pattern breaks it. A third pattern justifies the failure. And none of them communicate with each other because there's no central awareness coordinating the whole operation. They decide to be more patient and snap at their family within hours. Not because they're hypocrites, but because the calm I that made the decision and the triggered I that reacted angrily are different mechanical centers with no connection to each other. This is the real problem with the ordinary idiots. They cannot change because there's no unified self to change. Any transformation requires a stable center of awareness that can observe patterns and redirect them. But the ordinary idiot has no such center. Gurdjieff understood that people aren't actually flawed. They just lack a solid center. So the ordinary idiot is not a type of person. It's a state that everyone begins in. The intelligent person operates as an ordinary idiot. The successful person may operate as an ordinary idiot. The person who meditates daily and reads spiritual books may operate as an ordinary idiot. The ordinary idiot doesn't disappear through psychological insight or intellectual understanding alone. It begins to dissolve when something sees it clearly, not the mechanical observer noting patterns, but when actual consciousness recognizes what has been running the show. This recognition doesn't come through technique or accumulated knowledge. It comes through shock, through conditions that expose the mechanical operation so clearly it cannot be denied. Those moments are rare. Most people live their entire lives without experiencing even one. They operate as the ordinary idiot from birth to death. This is the starting point of Gurdjieff's system. Gurdjieff himself was the synonym of shock. He used to create ridiculous situations for his students so that they could see the ordinary idiot operating in them clearly. He believed that when the recognition happens through shocks, the illusion of consciousness cracks. Then the door for actual consciousness appears. The only way out of the ordinary idiot is self-observation when your mechanical system faces a shock, not the mechanical observer watching thoughts, but actual seeing that creates separation between awareness and the mechanical patterns running through the system. This means seeing thoughts arise and recognizing them as automatic events, not as my thinking. Watching emotional reactions being triggered and understanding them as mechanical responses, not as my authentic feelings. Noticing habitual behaviors activate and perceiving them as programmed patterns, not as my conscious choices. This kind of observation creates something that doesn't exist in the ordinary idiot. A gap between the machinery and the witness. A space where actual choice might become possible. A separation between what's mechanical and what might be conscious. Even after this separation, some develop into other types of idiots, more complex, more sophisticated, and more refined in their mechanical operation. The ordinary idiot is the first and the most common type. This is the foundation for the rest, the baseline condition everyone must recognize before any real work becomes possible. But here's where things get more interesting. Gurdjieff identified 20 more types, each representing a different way the machine can evolve, refine, and become more sophisticated. Even if you manage to go beyond the first type, you may get stopped by the second one. Tomorrow, we will discuss the second type, the intellectual idiot. Until then, take care and have a conscious day ahead.